You said that these tariffs would go into effect on Monday. You said no pause. And today there is a pause. So how can people believe your words today?
It's not a question of that. You have to have flexibility. I could say, here's a wall, and I'm going to go through that wall. I'm going to go through it no matter what, and keep going, and you can't go through the wall. Sometimes you have to be able to go under the wall, around the wall, or over the wall. These guys know that better than anybody, right? You got to go around them sometimes. You're not going to go through them. So I consider, I think in financial markets, because they change. Look how much it changed today.
Donald Trump sounding like an illegal immigrant, am I right? Sometimes you got to go under the wall. Sometimes you got to go over it. Sometimes you got to get a rope. You got to throw it up there and ask Jose to help you up. Look, this is going to be a very contentious debate amongst political pundits. I think what ultimately matters most is that what I had hoped would happen did in fact happen. That Donald Trump, after realizing that the market was going to absolutely implode, went for a contingency plan. Now, two things can be true at once. His plan A didn't work, but he did have a plan B in mind, as you would imagine he and his economic team would have had unless they're insane. So I think what really happened is that he has a couple guys that are lunatics, Lutnick and Peter Navarro. So Howard Lutnick and Peter Navarro are these like maximal tariff guys that believe that, do it off of trade deficits, do it however you want. Who cares? They're beautiful. Tariffs are the best thing in the world. And then you have the other guys like Scott Bessent, the more moderate people who actually have real money management and investing experience that are like, this is dangerous as hell. Like, as I said, two things can be true at once. Did Trump have a master plan? Yes. Was he angling for something? Was he angling for an end goal, or was this pure chaos, as the Krasensteins and others would describe it, and he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing? He's just a lunatic. No, that's definitely not true. But it's also not true that Trump is omnipotent and this was the master plan from the get-go and blah, blah, blah. That's also not true. So, as I've said many times, there's TDS on both sides. People's either this man can do no wrong or he can do no good, and I fall somewhere in between, and I hope most of you do too. In fact, just pointing this out today, I was challenged by numerous people saying, it seems as if you're rooting for Trump to fail. It's like, no. No, I'm absolutely not rooting for Trump to fail. I very much want him to succeed. I live here. Why would I possibly want him to fail? Not to mention, I have investment assets that I would prefer not be obliterated. So not a ton. I'm mainly in cash, so I'm not like overly committed to this market in a way that it would be detrimental to me in any significant way, but it does matter. It matters for the prosperity of the nation, prosperity of the people, of the neighbors, of my relatives, of my retired relatives. Like, all of this is very important. So what frustrates the hell out of me is that we have this punditry class that has theoretically replaced the mainstream media with a more honest variety of opinion. That is, Benny Johnson is specifically who comes to mind, which I'll play a clip from him in a second, who's just like 3 days ago is spinning it that tariffs are how you ultimately build, the industrial capacity of this country, and therefore all of the pain that we're dealing with now is worth it, and Trump's a genius, and who cares about losing money in the stock market? It's just money. We all lose money. So whatever.
Losing money costs you nothing. This is just the reality of life. Were you young and dumb? How much money did you lose? Everyone loses money. Everyone loses money. It costs you nothing. In fact, it builds quite a bit of character. In fact, you learn a lot of lessons, actually, by losing money.
And then the market booms back, and he's just like, 40 chess. Told you all along, never had a doubt. It's like, these people are just lying to you. Like, they're just there to carry water. I'm not even saying Benny Johnson's a bad guy, per se. I don't know him. I'm just saying, his opinion, you should recognize, like, this guy is just there to make the administration look good. And from my vantage point, the reason that podcasters and independent media and social media influencers became valuable and viable was because the corporate media was a water carrier for either the D's or the R's. And as a consequence, we lost trust in them. We lost faith in them. They no longer delivered us information that was valuable. Therefore, we sought out new pundits and influencers and everything else. So if you're going to follow in their footsteps of just carrying water for one side and demonizing the other, well, then you're worthless. You're basically a Fox News or a CNN or an MSNBC talking head. Why do we need you? some people still love that stuff. Some people still watch CNN. Some people still watch MSNBC and Fox News, and they don't have a problem with it at all. They think that they're actually getting the truth. So if you're one of those people, fine. But just to tie this back in, these are the same folks that were boosting the SNAP program for welfare, for soda. Because God knows the taxpayer ought to be footing the bill for your 2-liter. You know, that's how you stay alive, right? You just shouldn't trust these people. I'm sorry. Like as I said, are they bad people? I don't know. I don't know them. But can you trust them? The answer is no. They are paid to tell you a story, and it's up to you to see through it. So speaking of stories, Charlie Gasparino broke down how this negotiation actually went down, and I think you'll find it interesting.
I want to tell you right now that Donald Trump outsmarted the world. Trust me, I'm an American. I support my president. But that's not really what happened here, from what I understand. And I know I'll get pushback, but here's what it is. First off, we should point out that one of the good things about this is that Scott Bessent is finally in the White House. He's finally leading this. I mean, up until a couple of days ago, it was Lutnick, it was Peter Navarro, the Commerce Secretary, the trade advisor, very much hawks. Now it's Scott Bessent, who believes in cutting deals as opposed to, just just putting these tariffs out there and let's be a mercantilistic economy. That's number one. But number two, let's recall what happened overnight. And from what I understand, and I'm getting this from people that are talking to the White House, what happened in the bond market overnight, the spike in yields on the 30-year and the 10-year bond, which showed that people were dumping our bonds. And who were those people dumping our bonds? Japan, the biggest holder of bonds, was selling bonds. That's what I'm getting from some very big money managers.
I actually made a post in the middle of the night last night because I just happened to still be awake, thankfully, because I got to see this happen in real time. And what happened was very, very concerning. And this is like actually in my area of expertise because it has to do with interest rates and treasuries, because I really paid attention to that as a former mortgage broker. And what transpired was the 10-year note bumped 60 basis points in 2 days. The 10-year is so just to explain to people why this matters and why I started to freak out, read to you what I sent to my audience, which nobody heard because it was in the middle of the night, but I said, oil plummets, mortgage rates spike, real estate market will slow, recession begins, job layoffs, foreclosures, over-leveraged banks go bust, 2008-styled crash redux, or redo, however you pronounce that. And then I went on to say, a ton of variables could change its trajectory, but the market is screaming trouble ahead, prepare accordingly. So why do I say that? And I think this is kind of educational for some people that have never followed the markets the way I did in the past. Anytime you see a major asset class like oil, 10-year treasuries have a wild price swing, the market is telling you something. And it's usually easy to tell you, or it's easy to analyze what they are trying to tell you. When the bond yield on the 10-year starts to escalate, normally the 10-year is really steady. It's like the deepest asset class in the world. There's so many 10-year treasury notes. It's liquid as hell. You can get in it. You can get out of it. Central banks all over the world buy them. Investors, pension plans, it's the asset class. So that thing doesn't move very rapidly. And if you see a big move in it, it's usually a consequence of Fed policy, that they have changed their baseline interest rates, and therefore the market is adjusting to that new reality. So what's crazy about this move is that a 60 basis point move, which it has already given that back because of what happened today. But when that was happening, that was in the middle of the night. That's what led to this change. And I'll tell you why I know that.
There was a pause put in on the tariffs. Can you walk us through your thinking about why you decided to put a 90-day pause?
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions.
It's basically just a siren blasting out across the marketplace, across the global economy, saying, we don't think that this market is going to stand up. So I saw that. I saw oil, which plummeted from somewhere around 80 down to somewhere around 60. And that is also, once again, a predictor of diminished demand for industrial goods, because oil goes into the production of everything. So if you start to see oil all of a sudden plummet out of the blue, like the last time we saw it massively plummet was during the lockdowns of 2020. What was that telling you? Well, yeah, the global economy was basically shutting down. We were going into a severe recession, and therefore you would not be producing as many goods. Therefore, you would not need so much oil. Therefore, the price of oil plummets. So these are all like telltale signs. A lot of people read that and they're like, oh, you hate Trump. You're rooting against him, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, dude, no. I am telling you what the market is telling you. That's all I'm doing. I'm not commenting on whether or not Trump is doing the right thing here. I'm just telling you, if you see these signals, you should know what's coming next. And I knew, and I conveyed that to my audience. I get some pushback. I don't really give a shit. I'm going to still continue to tell you guys the truth as best I can based off of the information I have in that moment. And as I said at the end of that, I said, there are a ton of variables that could change this. This is not a guarantee. Well, what was I implying with that? Well, the main thing I told you guys last week, what I hoped would happen, that Donald Trump would in fact go to the negotiating table, that when you have these alleged 70 plus countries that are all coming to us saying, please, please, please stop with these tariffs on us, we'll bring ours down to zero. As I said, like explicitly, if he accepts that, he ultimately lowers the tariff barriers. He opens up a freer market and one with less reciprocal tariffs, but rather reciprocal non-tariffs and reciprocal non-tariff barriers, like getting rid of all of it, just opening up the free market, the economy will boom. So what did we see today? Donald Trump announced a few hours ago, we are going to pause for 90 days our implementation of these tariffs. He also followed up with, and this is the key here, I'm going to be adding 100+% tariff against China because they responded to ours. I think they levied an additional 30 or 40% tariff against American goods just yesterday. And this was the key here, is that they were telling people late last week, they said, look, we want you to not respond. Do not reciprocate. Just take it. Take it in the grill, basically.
This was his strategy all along, and that you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors, and we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well.
We're the biggest market economy. You've been taking advantage of us. Deal with it. We're evening the playing field. That was their pitch. And it sounded crazy, right? But this is what they were doing. Essentially, what Donald Trump was doing was he was loyalty testing all of our trading partners. And I'm not saying it's fair. It's not fair. But guess what? Negotiating 101. Who has the cards? Who has the chips on their side of the table? The American economy is the biggest economy in the world and the biggest consumer economy in the world, and everybody wants to sell into it. So Trump is negotiating from a position of maximum leverage, of maximum win percentage. So he's saying, and this is the truth with any gambler too. If you're sitting down at a poker table, you can lose a lot of hands if you're sitting there with 10 grand and you're playing up against a bunch of people that have $200 in front of them, right? Because you're going to outlast them. That's basically what Trump was saying. He's saying, I have the most chips. I can play this as hard as I want. And ultimately, if I have to backtrack, it's not going to hurt me. So I'm going to take this as aggressively as possible. It's a very aggressive, poker mindset. And that's what he did. He took it as aggressively as possible. And simultaneously, he told the rest of the table, don't call, don't raise. Basically is what he was saying to him. Don't you fucking raise me. Who raised him? Well, according to his message today on Truth Social and on X, only China raised him. That's actually a lie. Mexico, Canada, and the EU all raised back. But his announcement was that we're going to put triple-digit tariff rates on China exclusively. And we're going to keep a baseline of 10% across all goods across the rest of the fucking world, which is pretty wild in its own right. And it'll generate a lot of revenue. And it's actually low enough that might not destroy the economy. So this could be kind of a sweet middle ground. But what I've concluded after seeing all this is that, this was all about targeting China. Like the fact that there was other nations that also levied reciprocal tariffs against us, and he's like, you're good, we're cool. But China, you get 100+% tariff on all your goods. That tells you everything you need to know. This whole thing was targeted against alienating China from their trading partners. Basically what Bessent and Trump and others are telling our trading partners is, look, we are decoupling from China. You want to negotiate and trade with both of us? Good luck. You'll be cutting your own throat. That's what Bessent said verbatim. I'll show you that clip in a second. They're saying, you got to choose. You gonna trade with us or you going to trade with China? You know that they're shady. They don't trade right. They do all sorts of IP theft and everything else. Do you really want to put your lot in with those folks, or do you want to deal with the tariffs and deal with the bullshit that we put you through? A lot of nations are going to opt for America. As of now, the gambit is working. But I think what's important to understand is all of the pain that we saw in the market over the past week. This is the type of stuff that libertarians are right about when they tell you that tariffs will destroy the capital markets. That is true. We saw it. So you can't get on your high horse and go, look, the market's back up today, therefore Rand Paul's an idiot. Like, no, Rand was right. This is a capital destructing policy. Like, that's indisputable. We all saw it. He was right. You can't blame him because he wasn't read in on the contingency plans, that he wasn't read in on what the ultimate game plan is for these negotiations. And also, you can't really blame the Trump administration because he can't convey that information to all of the senators and all the congressional representatives that are in his caucus, because if he were to, these idiots would go out on TV talking it. And if you're in negotiating with the world, well, you better keep your cards close to your chest. So what I'm saying is nobody knew except for Trump's inner circle, which is exactly what I told you last week. I said, anybody that tells you they know how this is going to play out, unless they're in that inner circle or they have a mole inside of it, they're lying to you. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I could guess, and I tried to, but I didn't know. And anybody pretending that they did was lying. So all of the influencers saying, told you, 40 chess, we fucking knew it. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You absolutely didn't. Trump could have stayed the course and driven us into a severe recession, and you guys still would have been beating the drums saying it's all part of the plan. Just trust the plan. 2 years from now we'll be bouncing back, and you're probably right. 2 years from now we would have been bouncing back with immense pain in the interim.
If you have a mass sale of bonds, that means people are losing confidence in the U.S. economy, on the ability to do deals with us. And from what I understand, this is what forced the hand of this 90-day reprieve. Now, is it a good thing? Are people coming to the table? Yeah. But if you read between the lines, or not even what Scott Bessent said, we have no deals, right? There's nobody that is really there saying, this is what we're going to do. And they paused it anyway. So my thing said, well, I'll give you this. There is some art of the deal here. And by the way, brilliant move by putting China in the corner. But that's a whole separate thing, because remember, that's a very difficult negotiation.
In terms of escalation, unfortunately, the biggest offender in the global trading system is China, and they're the only country who's escalated. And I can tell the rest of the world that, I'm not sure whether it was the prime minister or the economic minister in Spain made some comments this morning, oh, well, maybe we should align ourselves more with China. That would be cutting your own throat, because I can tell you that these Chinese exports that the U.S. tariff wall is going to keep out, that China, for all of you who can remember that Disney movie of the brooms carrying the buckets of water, that is the Chinese business model. It never stops. They just keep producing and producing and dumping, and it's going somewhere. And I think, Rob, at the end of the day, that we can probably reach a deal with our allies, with the other countries that have been long-term. They've been good military allies, not perfect economic allies, and then we can approach China as a group.
There you have it. That's the master plan. We're going to negotiate better deals with all of our trading partners. We're going to get to lower the tariffs that they've been placing on us unfairly for decades and decades. And once we've established that trading block in a much more healthy, equitable fashion, then we're going to approach China from a position of maximal strength to try and negotiate the best terms possible. You don't have to like it. I'm not even commenting on whether or not I like it at this point. I will in a second. But that's what's happening. Like, we finally have clarity. This is about icing China out of the global economy. This is the same thing that essentially happened with Russia after they invaded Ukraine. It's not the same thing. That was extreme to the highest level, sanctions and everything else. But this is about as maximal a economic war as you can levy against somebody, and it's getting spicy. I mean, it's really triple-digit tariffs being placed on China is no joke. Does that mean he won't relinquish or relent on that? Yeah, he might. Now, to comment on what I think about all this, I'm not a fan of China. I'm like, Why would I be?
104% tariffs in China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it, and sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that
I
look
want
like?
Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. This is not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese.
I don't have any beef with Chinese people, but I am not a fan of their business practices. I do think that they trade in an unfair way, and I think that they have, in some regards, taken advantage of us. But on the flip side of that coin, the U.S. and our central bank and our setting of interest rates and printing and borrowing into oblivion, we've taken advantage of the rest of the world too. So it's not fair. This is not about fair. Like, this is about power. Who's got it? Who's got the most of it, and who doesn't? And what Trump and the U.S. is saying, what Trump's economic team is saying, is, look, China's the rising dragon. We are the declining superpower. We either take our shot now and we negotiate a deal that's to our benefit now while we are still the big dog, or we basically accept our fate and suffer the consequences. Give Trump his due. He's saying, fuck that. This is America. We're the best. We're gonna take our shot while we have the chips, while we have the cards. Like, I get that. As a business guy, I respect that. Now, as a libertarian, it causes me some concern, just to be honest. You guys may have noticed that I didn't vape throughout this episode. How did I do that? You might be thinking. How did you possibly stop vaping for an entire hour? You unbelievably in control savage you. Here's the answer. ZIPPIX, Zippix. I love these things. They're basically toothpicks that have helped me cut down. And if you are in the market for that, if you're interested in doing that, I would highly encourage you to do so. Get your health in order. ZIPPIX toothpicks.com. Use promo code CLINT10 for 10% off. A really great product. You must be 21 or older to order. Warning, nicotine is an addictive chemical. So yeah, zip more, smoke less with Zippix nicotine toothpicks. They have helped me cut back tremendously. Again, that's ZIPPIX toothpicks.com. Promo code CLINT10 to get 10% off your first order using the code CLINT10 at checkout. Zippix toothpicks.com. As Ron Paul and others have famously stated, as long as you're sending goods across borders, troops don't go across borders. You know, like, that is my fear, is that if you take, like, the biggest thing that has kept, in my opinion, America and China from going to a hot war, even as they've risen and there's been all this contention over Taiwan and everything else, is that we need each other. They buy our treasuries, we buy their goods, they take our cash. Like, they basically diffuse the inflationary pressure that exists here. It was a mutually beneficial exchange in some regard. In some regard. So that kind of kept us from becoming, enemy nations. And I think that's preferable to a Cold War a la the USSR versus the US. Like, I would prefer to continue to trade with them and maintain as good a relationship as we can, as opposed to becoming enemies. Some people in America are already convinced that's intractable. Like, we are going to end up in some sort of conflict with China at some point. I don't agree with that. And I think that it is avoidable. But I think that you have to be treated fairly, and you have to treat them fairly. Kind of a golden rule of geopolitics. Like, you have to recognize that, yes, they are a rising superpower. Yes, we are a declining superpower. Can we come to some sort of mutual agreement where they get to control their sphere of influence and we control our own? And now, I don't know if Trump's willing to allow that. Maybe he'll negotiate some deal where, look, we're going to basically back off on this whole Taiwan thing. You guys figure it out. I'm not saying conquer it, but, like, we're going to basically take a hands-off approach here. We just want the semiconductors, okay? Like that's the only reason that our government cares about Taiwan, by the way. There's no fucking concern about human rights or anything like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how the negotiation plays out, but I think it is very dangerous. I think it's very dangerous to take an antagonistic approach with, the largest nation by population size, the second largest economy, expecting it not to become, a real contentious potential for war. Like, I don't know. I can't give you an answer on that. But I do think that it is true that they've treated us unfairly in some regards in trade, and we are still the largest consumer economy. Therefore, hey, you're the president of America. Negotiate the best deal for Americans. I can't help but respect that. I hope you can tell I'm trying to give you as fair an analysis of this as I can. Like, I think that Trump did have a master plan. He did have an end goal in mind. This was a contingency plan. He did back off because the bond market fucking lost its shit last night. So this is not like perfect 4D chess where he knew exactly and, he was going to do this today and this was the plan. No, they're lying to you if they tell you that. But he is a smart enough businessman and negotiator to have read the tea leaves and said, let's go to the contingency. We've had the contingency plan laid out. Now we're doing it. So I think that's the truth. It's in between, as is usually the case. He's not super genius 5D chess guy, but he's also not bumbling idiot that has, bankrupted casinos and how could you possibly bankrupt a casino? Those people. He's in between. And I'd say I'd even give him more, 60% to 70% credit on the advanced chess playing, because that's really what we witnessed. I hope this explains some of this. I spoke really fast, but I tried to be concise as to like what exactly transpired and why. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. I will reply to you guys. And if you appreciated the advice, please do support the show at Liberty Lockpod on X. Subscribe there. I'll follow you back. Kind of the final takeaway here, and I think this is actually the most important thing. This is only a 90-day pause. So what you get to take away from this is you now know what a full rollout of 25, 50% tariffs on most of the rest of the world, what that will do to the economy. No excuses if we get back to the 90-day window here and they say, we're starting these. Don't expect the economy to deal with it well. The economy is going to fucking take a shit. So you need to be prepared with your investments. You have to actually understand this is what's likely to happen. Now, here's the key, and this is why I can't give you firm advice. Once they get to that 90-day window and they say, okay, we've negotiated deals with XYZ countries, but we haven't negotiated deals with ABC countries, we're going to be increasing the tariffs on ABC countries. I can't tell you definitively that he'll follow through with that because this is his negotiating style. He may not. If the market handles it well, he'll keep them. If the market takes a shit, he'll probably drop them. So I don't know. And nobody knows because he is fucking really deciding much of this on the fly. So you're going to have to adjust on the fly too. And I'm sorry. I can't just be a Jim Cramer, slam a button on the table, bye. I would love to do that. It'd be a lot more fun than this. But it'd be a lie. It would be a lie. Because I don't have a fucking clue what this man's going to do next. And in some ways, that's the strength of his negotiating tactic. They don't know either. They're all freaked the fuck out. So as an investor, as a conservative investor, which I am, I can't fucking invest in this market. I don't know what's going to happen next. It's insane. Consider the risks, understand what's happening, realize that you just got a peek into what his policies would have created had he stayed the course. And it was going to be brutal. It would have been probably an 08 style recession / maybe depression because it was a bigger deal than 08. I mean, it would have been banking contagion and it would have been nuts. It would have been inflation. It could have got really nutty, dude. So I'm breathing a sigh of relief for us, for the economy, for everybody that's like still invested in this market who just works and lives here. Like, it sucks to go through a recession. Some of you are probably too young to remember 08, but it is not fun, man. So we have a reprieve. All I'm saying is use this time to reorient, reallocate, reconsider everything that you've been doing and take the opportunity to extrapolate the lesson that you should have learned over the past week and apply that to 90 days from now so that you can hopefully capitalize on it, either upside or downside, and maybe hedge both ways. Whew. What a time to be alive, ladies and gentlemen. What a time to be alive. As I said, Do leave any questions that you have down below. I will answer them. Before I get out of here, I want to give a quick update on Ryan Ruth. Check this out.
Before he allegedly stalked Trump on his West Palm Beach golf course, prosecutors say Ruth, a fierce supporter of Ukraine, reached out to an associate there and requested a rocket-propelled grenade and other weapons. State authorities also say he waited for 12 hours in a sniper's nest just off the golf course. A Secret Service agent positioned one hole ahead of the president spotted the barrel of an assault rifle in the bushes and engaged him.
So yeah, we don't get many updates when it comes to the Ruth case or the Butler case for that matter. But as you guys know, as I've told you many months ago, this dude was in Ukraine trying to get into the Foreign Legion, which, by the way, they said, you're too crazy for us. No thanks. Too old, too decrepit, too nuts. Too nuts to fight in the Foreign Legion in Ukraine. Oh, man. Anyways, this guy also was saying, I could get you passports from, I think it was from Afghanistan to come and fight. Like he was trying to get like former Taliban and shit to come fight against Russia and Ukraine. Like I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked if Mr. Ruth was not on the government payroll in some regard. I don't know which institution. I'm guessing CIA. I don't know for sure. We need to get to the bottom of that. And the fact that the Trump administration and Bondi and Patel and Bongino still aren't telling you the truth about that is mind-blowing to me. I'm gonna stay on it. I think it's a very interesting story. And one last topic I got to cover just briefly because he's a buddy of mine. Tim Pool is creating quite the kerfuffle today because he had the audacity to go to a private meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu last night. Apparently what happened was they did it under Chatham House rules. I'll let Tim Pool explain it to you.
Last night I wasn't here. I got late word that I was invited to a private roundtable meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It was under what's called Chatham House rules. For those that are not familiar, this means that you cannot reveal anybody who attended, nor attribute anything to any one individual, as they can deny it, and they would. However, what I love about what the White House is currently doing, when you bring together a bunch of influencers and podcasters who don't know much about journalism culture, whatever you want to call it, not that we respect it tremendously, most people didn't know what Chatham House meant. So with all due respect, it's funny because they bring us into the Blair House, which is where Netanyahu was staying. And immediately people are walking around with their cameras, their phones up. They actually took our phones from us. And I legit thought they would maintain Chatham House rules, meaning you can't quote the prime minister, you can't quote his officials and the other people who were there, but you can report what was said generally.
So Tim goes on to explain that, there's reports that are coming out that are lying about what transpired and that, in fact, he asked a question. He did not assert that Qatar was responsible for funding social media bot networks to, grow anti-Semitism in America. He said that he asked Netanyahu about that, and Netanyahu responded, he doesn't know. Tim's denying that. He's saying he asked the question. He did not assert it. And knowing Tim, that's probably true. So as to why, and this is, my own ignorance or naivete, perhaps, because I'm not a journalist. I've never, been in that world. I don't understand why they would structure it with Chatham House rules. I don't get that. Like, why would it not be either on the record or off the record? This is some sort of hybrid where you're able to ask questions, everybody's able to go home and go to their, their shows or whatever, report on what was said, but you just can't attribute it to anybody? Weird, right? I don't know. That just seems very strange to me. Jeremy from the Quartering was saying, like, why the fuck would you agree to this? And I have to, maybe I'll text him and I'll ask him, like, why did you agree to that? Why did you agree to those rules? Because it just seems very strange to me. But maybe there's a good reason. I don't know. So I'm not going to jump to a conclusion. I will say this, though. Because people are so divided when it comes to the topic of Israel, I'm not sure that I would accept it or not. I don't know. But I can understand why a lot of people wouldn't. Like, it puts you in a position of the appearance of having been compromised, even if you probably weren't. Like, how could I know? Like, why would you meet and not be able to attribute what was being conveyed to you to the person that was saying it? Like, why is there any level of secrecy? That seems odd to me. And then you could add to it the fact that Netanyahu is like wanted for war crimes by much of the rest of the world. You're meeting with the guy. Like, I don't have a problem with you meeting with anybody who's category. I mean, there's plenty of American presidents that have been charged with war crimes from the rest of the world. You could still meet with them, but what is the value? I guess I should say, like, what is the actual value for your audience? And what I found weird is, like, there wasn't any takeaway. You know, like, I watched the segment where Tim talked about this, and he went a little bit longer than that. So hop over to Timcast IRL and watch it if you want. But it just didn't seem like there was much value to it, and it just makes me wonder, like, why is a foreign dignitary, you know, a prime minister of another nation, meeting with our media, our, you know, alleged independent media, and having quasi off the record conversations with them? To what end? For what purpose? Now, I'm not trying to go full Israel derangement syndrome, as Tim Pool has often accused people, including me, I think. But it's strange. It is strange. And I would like further clarity, you know? Like, why? Why is this happening? Just to put it in a frame that may make more sense to Tim. If Xi Jinping flew into D.C. and he was like, hey, I want to have a quasi off-the-record conversation with you, Tim, and Benny Johnson, and, you know, a handful of other conservative influencers, we would all be like, hey, dude, what are you doing? What's up, bro? Right? So can I feel the same way when it's Netanyahu? I hope I can, because I do. I feel like it's fucking strange, all right? I don't understand it. Very odd. If anybody that's watching now or listening has any idea as to why they would do that, like, I'll just tell you what it looks like. What it looks like is that he's meeting with independent media because he wants them to do his bidding, just like the corporate media has done forever and ever. Call me crazy. That would be my guess. He wants to butter you up so that on the nightly news, when you have a guest come on your show that's like, hey, I don't like what's happening in Gaza right now, you're going to be like, well, I just met with Netanyahu and he says that everything you're saying is a lie, right? Sorry, that's kind of Occam's razor as to why he would want to meet with you guys based off of what you said about the meeting. It doesn't seem like there was much value to it aside from that. So it seems like, hey, we'll give you access as long as you give us favorable coverage. That's what it looks like. I hope that's not what it is. But if it's not that, why the fuck is he meeting with you? And vice versa. Let me know. I'm open to legitimate answers. I literally can't come up with one. It's very strange to me. So I don't know. I had to throw my 2 cents on that because it's just such a strange story, and it's very contentious, and it's very hot on the internets right now. But I am curious to see what you guys think about it. Why did Netanyahu meet in quasi-secret with a bunch of independent influencers? Why is that happening? See you soon. Peace. Quick reminder, if you want to support Liberty Lockdown, an easy way to do so, get cozy and maybe even get a Rev 7 soda, you know what I mean? Energy drink. Go to mypillow.com, use promo code LOCKDOWN, get you the Giza sheets, get you some cozy, get you comfy, okay? If you're not comfy, you're not really living. Look at Mike Lindell's smiling visage. This man, you don't have a mustache like that and not sell a good product. That's just a fact. That's a fact of life. That's right. MyPillow.com, promo code LOCKDOWN. Get you some cozy.
Welcome to Liberty Lockdown. Please scan your barcode. Your liberty ain't gone, but yeah, it's on hold. Where did it come from and where did it go?